And man, each ceremony was so different. It was so hard. Like, I cried. The first ceremony, I was healing my mommy and daddy issues. And any sense of like grudge or remorse that I had for them, it just evaporated. The ego died. I healed. I feel like I saw my parents with different eyes. Second day, I was dealing with all of my spiritual, like, negative energy, like all that exorcism stuff, and I was dealing with that. Third night was when I was battling with my sexual assault experience. And each night was hard, and I felt like I was in hell each night.
All right, Jacqueline. Jacqueline, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
So I was born in Linwood, California, which is in LA. I was raised, I would say, I moved a lot as a kid. My dad was a lineman, so we traveled with him a lot. But if I can say what I consider home would be Compton. That's where my grandmother lived. So all my adolescent years, I lived in Compton. In regards to, like, childhood, how was my childhood? My childhood was fairly, it was good. It was good for the most part. I did grow up with a lot of domestic violence. So now as an adult, I realize that my brain forgot a lot of my childhood as a survival tactic.
You block it out?
Yeah, blocked it off. But what I do remember is I never doubted my parents' love 100%.
Despite the abuse?
Despite, yeah, the abuse. I mean, it was always between them. I was always like the savior in a sense, like just trying to protect my sister, I think. But I definitely like had a pretty decent childhood. I think a big factor was because my grandma was a foster mom. So as a kid, I was exposed to other children that were physically, sexually abused, either dealing with parents that were addicts or a combination of all of them. So I think that really helped guide my parents, like, okay, we don't trust anybody. A lot of these kids were victims of, like, incest. And my dad was like, I don't trust anybody. Your mom's taking care of you. So I was very sheltered, and I'm very blessed because I feel like I had a decent upbringing, aside from, like, you know, the poverty. We're first immigrants. So, and yeah, we moved a lot. So I think housing insecurity was a bit of a factor in my childhood. I'd say like sixth grade, I think, was when I first experienced my first traumatic event. And I want to clarify, I'm not a religious person, but I am spiritual. I grew up religious, though. And in sixth grade, my grandfather was living in Mexico. My grandparents were living in Mexico at the time. They decided to sell their home in Compton, wanted a bigger space. They were going to retire. And my grandpa got really sick with kidney failure. So they were forced to move back to the States to get dialysis. And my grandmother ended up choosing Apple Valley. So we went from Compton to Apple Valley. It was a total different shift. If you don't know where Apple Valley is, it's in the high desert. I don't know what the population is, but it was dead. And it was hot and it was cold and it was just, there was no medium. And my grandmother, we were literally like watching my grandfather like deteriorate. So our safe haven was just religion. Like we went to church twice a week, and that was a real like it helped us a lot. And in this home, my grandmother's home, it felt very eerie. I mean, I'm 10 years old at the time, probably. I didn't see anything, but I definitely felt like there was heavy negative energy there. And I swear, I'm probably gonna sound crazy to many, and that's okay. But I was like, I'm just gonna share my story because growing up, I never knew anyone that encountered what I encountered. So this house was essentially haunted. And this entity would really just haunt the men in my family. And it started with my uncles. And it'd start like easy, like they would just flicker the remote at the middle of the night, just like turn on the alarm. They would get like little shrugs here and there. And it was at one point, I remember my grandfather's house just really started to like deteriorate. And I think they were like planning like, hey, this is what's gonna happen, if shit hits a fan. And I remember one time, one of my uncles, he's only like 3 or 4 years older than me. He just starts like, he just goes into like shock. And he's like, starts like, Mom, like in Spanish, he's like, do you see what's next to you? You have somebody next to you. And then my grandmother's like, what's going on? And he's just like, Mom, there's something next to you. And then one of my other uncles comes out and he's like, Mom, I hear a fucking baby crying outside. I feel like somebody left a baby outside. So they end up going out. Mark, when he comes back in, and I swear, it's like the movie The Conjuring. And later on, I was like, I should have told my story. Something grabs my uncle and he's literally levitating and floating, like if something's choking him. And he falls. And when he falls, he just loses consciousness. His eyes roll back. He starts talking in a weird language I've never heard. I mean, we're Spanish and English. That's all we knew. And he starts like spitting his tongue out like a snake. And I remember like they were just geeking out, and everybody just starts praying like, oh my God, like this is a exorcism. And at this time, like I really knew Psalms 91, so I just kept saying it because that was like the Psalms that I knew, like that's what that was what was engraved in my head. And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. Like this is not real. This is crazy. And somehow the pastor ends up showing up. It's like the middle of the night. Pastor shows up and starts talking to my uncle, like, what's your name? And this entity says, my uncle, like, says his name. And he's like, okay, I command you to leave this body. You're not welcomed. This is not your home. And my uncle just, like, gains consciousness and is like, what the fuck happened? Like, what? Like, we were like, are you okay? Like, what's your name? And he says his name. And they're like, okay, yeah. So it was like it was a possession. So anyways, more of the story is after that, my grandma was like, screw this. I'm not living here. She ends up moving. We end up moving back to LA. And I start school and I was so depressed, like severely depressed. Like I would cry every single day. And I think it was just the fact that I knew this. I seen all this, and how do you explain this to someone who isn't religious, who, you're brand new out of school and, this is the topic of conversation. So I just absorbed all of that. And I just really, I had suicidal ideation, and I just really just started to feel like just very heavy. And again, they took me to church, and after that, it helped. But I think I was just, scared that I was really, absorbing all this trauma that I had endured, and I didn't know how to, vocalize it. So anyways, high school, that was, the first traumatic event. High school, it was pretty decent. I was still very sheltered. I didn't go out much. But once I hit 17 and I got my own job, I started paying rent. I was like, all right, this is where I'm at. So I started paying rent, and I had a lot more liberty. I was going to community college. I'd go to school Monday to Thursday, and then I'd work in the evenings from Wednesday to Sunday at nights. So I was just fully booked. I didn't have a life. And at this restaurant that I used to work in, it was in Compton. It's called Louis Burgers. They would close at 4 in the morning when I first started on weekends. So sometimes we would leave early. I would say I would come out at 12, and I would go party after. And that's where my drinking started. And I started drinking, and I started hanging around with the bad crowd. I think in the Hispanic culture, there's this idealization with the narco culture where it's you see these kingpins that had nothing and they grow up and they have everything. So it was very easy to get lost in that world, and I started partying a lot, hanging around with a lot of people that weren't good people. They had a lot of money, but they weren't good people. And I remember I was 18. I got off of work. I went to this kickback. And I think that was the first red flag that I should have noticed. My two friends that I knew, they started throwing up. like bad. And I had just got there. I was like, what the hell? What's going on? And they started, like, they panicked. They called their mom and they left. So I ended up staying. And after that, I lost consciousness. And I just remember me waking up the next day and I was like, what the fuck happened? Like, I was in my house and I see myself and I'm seeing, like, I'm bruised. I have bruises on, like, my ankles, on my wrist. And I knew, I was like, I think I was, like, assaulted. Like, it might have been consensual because I don't remember, but then I went to the restroom, I'm bleeding, and I'm like, no, this shit was not, like, this is not normal. And I felt so much shame. And I remember it was Sunday, and I was scared, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna go to the doctor. Like, I'm scared. And I went to the doctor, and I'm just like, I think I might have been exposed. Can I get a STD check? So they ended up doing a check, and they're like, you know, the preliminary questions that they ask. And have you ever done drugs? No. Do you drink? No. Have you ever been a victim of assault? No. I was just truly just ashamed. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know who it was. The people that I was with, they were really bad people. And I knew if I said something, it was just gonna, like, it was gonna create a lot of craziness because of my family. Like, we're from Compton. Like, my dad, if he would have known who it was, he would have probably been in jail because he would have got, like, revenge. And I just didn't want any of my family members to get hurt by my reckless mistake. So I didn't say anything. I told 3 of my friends, and that's that. And I didn't realize, like, how traumatic it was. Like, I would, like, eat myself alive in the sense of, damn, I don't remember anything, and I hate that I don't know anything. But then I'm like, maybe it was a blessing also because there's people who are literally raped and they remember everything. And I was just like, you know what? It's crazy how we start to self-sabotage. I was drinking a lot. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to, like, I mean, you grew up watching Scarface blow. Like, cocaine is, like, this fun party drug that's 20 minutes. And, all right, we're going to do this. So I was, like, dating this guy. And he was, again, a bad guy. He was in a gang, sold drugs, had multiple baby mamas. I knew I wasn't going to end up with this guy. But I ended up telling him, like, hey, like, I'm curious. Like, I want to try it. And he's like, you're fucking stupid. Like, you're not going to do that. And I was like, no, like, I want to try it with someone that I trust. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm out in public and I don't know what's happening. So, Mark, this was the first time that I ever did any hardcore drugs. And I never had seen any, like, I didn't know what meth was. I didn't know what coke was. I thought it was all the same. Turns out it was crystal meth. And I remember, like, I'd never done anything. It's only what I've seen on TV. My parents never did any, like, coke. My dad was a chronic weed smoker, but it wasn't anything crazy. And I remember I just rolled up the bill, and I ended up doing 2 lines of crystal meth on my first try. And it was horrible. I hated, like, the instant feeling I got was like it's just an instant body rush. My eye just starts crying, and it literally feels like glass going up your nose. And I remember telling this guy, like, oh my God, like, what the fuck? Like, it was like an out-of-body experience. I was like, I need to sober up. Like, I need to get better. I need to feel better. So I remember there was like a 40-ounce beer, and I just pounded it, like, in a minute. And I'm like, oh my God, like, this doesn't feel like it's not doing anything. Like, what the fuck? So I ended up going home. I was like, I need to go home. And I remember I drove home like that. And I felt like I was on a spaceship. I just drove so fast because I was scared. And I think my mom was going to church again. I think she sensed that, like, I was going down, like, a wrong path. I was going out a lot. And I remember both of my parents were like, you're going to go to church today. And I was like, I'm not going to church. Like, I'm not going to church. Like, you have time to go out, you're going to fucking go to church. You still live under our roof. You're going to follow our rules. So they forced me to go to church, Mark. High as hell. Off crystal meth for my first time. And I remember I was there, and I just started crying. And I'm like, when you're at church, you see people crying. They're like, oh, it's the Holy Spirit. Like, it touched, she's feeling it. No, I felt like shit. I was like, God, I'm fucking sorry. I can't believe I'm here. Like, I don't want this. I don't want to be this. I don't want, I'm promised I'm not going to do this anymore. And I remember I called one of my friends. He's a therapist now. And I called him. I was like, dude, like, I fucking hit rock bottom. I did crystal meth thinking it was cocaine, and I'm tripping balls. And he came and he was like, dude, I had to come because you sounded like, I thought you were going to like do something crazy. Like, you sounded like you were going to off yourself. And I was like, I fucking feel like it. Like, I feel like shit. Like, I just left God's house high as fuck. Like, what do I do? And I remember I went to work that day and I told my coworker, and she's like, oh my God, girl. Like, no, like, you did G, girl. That is not cocaine. Cocaine is not that. Like, you started off hard. She's like, give it some time. It's going to feel better. And I was like, okay. So I didn't sleep that whole night. And after that, she's like, yeah, like, this is Coke. And like a couple of days, she's like, this is Coke. Like, you want to try it? And I remember I went to the bathroom and I just did a little key, and I was like, all right, this is completely different. I see what the fucking hype is. My body, like, I was looking for that dopamine rush. And I got it instantly with Coke. And it was just a quick little high. And I was like, if I drink, I'm going to sober up. So that's how I started doing Coke. And I hid it from a lot of people. No one knew that I was doing this. And I just, again, I was just drinking and doing Coke and drinking and doing Coke to sober up, because I was like, I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I'm like roofied and sexually assaulted again. And that was like my justification for it. So I end up meeting this guy, again, another bad boy. Like, he ends up being a drug dealer. He tells me like, oh, I have tickets to a game. We go to this game. And we end up going, like, after the game, we go to like his friend's house, and his friend was like the distributor. And this is the first time he literally pulled out a brick of cocaine like this big. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's like, you want, like, they started all like doing it, and they're like, you want some? And I was like, sure. And I do it, and I guess I did so much that all I remember is like me being in the shower and like with my clothes on, and I'm like thrown up, and like he's like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like, trying to bring me back to life. And I think I was ODing, and he couldn't call the cops. He couldn't call the ambulance because he's in a house with a bunch of fucking drugs. So after that, he's like, yeah, like, when you were out, you started panicking. You were like, don't touch me, don't touch me. And I feel like you've been through something, and just know I'm not going to do that to you. Like, you're not going to do that. So that's when that relationship with him started. And I was just he had a construction company. He was older than me. So started working with him. I quit my hamburger job and started working with him. I was doing all his invoicing, and we'd party. I was 20 years old at the time, and he would take me to these breweries, and where they knew him, and they wouldn't ID me, and we'd get hammered and then go home, and it was just like a 3-day bender. And I was like, dude, like, I'm really, like, this guy is fucking depressed. Like, I was depressed, but this guy was like just insane. And I remember one time I really got scared, and I locked myself in the bathroom. He's like, open the fucking door, open the door. And he opens, and I open the door, and then I'm like saying like a prayer, and I'm like, God, please, like, please, I'm sorry. And then he's like, look at me. And I'm like, what? He's like, you think God exists? God is not real. The devil's real. God is just an illusion. And in my head, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why do I attract all these fucking demons? Like, and in my head, I'm like, damn, like, fuck. And I remember texting my sister. My sister's younger than me, and she was a teen mom. And I told her, I was like, hey, if anything happens to me, just know it was like my ex. And she called me, she's like, what the fuck is going on? I was like, I don't know, he's just fucking tripping. Like, he's tripping balls. And I don't know, I'm like, she's like, do you want me to go? But then I started to think about it. My niece was a baby. Like, I didn't want my sister to like get up and leave in the middle. I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm like, but if anything happens, I'll call you. And that day I was like, dude, I'm not doing this shit. I'm too fucking young to be dealing with this grown-ass man. And he tells me, he's like, the next day, he's like, hey, I'm going to go to Mexico for business. And I knew like what business meant. And I always said, like, I don't want to know. Like, whatever you're going to do what you're going to do. Go handle your shit. So this dummy leaves his computer, and it turns out he was in Mexico with his other girlfriend, traveling with his girlfriend, and I'm at his house, and I'm like, damn, like, what the fuck am I gonna do? Like, I don't want to be here. I remember I called my mom and like, Mom, like, can I go back home? She's like, yes, you can come home. And I tell my dad, like, Dad, come I home? He's like, yes, you can come home. You're the one who left. And I went, and again, they took me to church, and I just start purging everything out, like. And after that time, Mark, I swear to God, like I can't stand cocaine. I hate it. Like I remember I would still go out with like this like similar people, and if somebody did kiss somebody, and I can taste when they did cocaine, I just start gagging. It was crazy because after like that prayer, and then I remember the pastor's wife telling me like this entity wanted to see you on the street like a drug addict, and I honestly feel like I got rid of that. So I ended up getting a job at this cleaning company, and this was the first time like I ever was exposed to a woman who had experienced like a lot of adversity. She was an immigrant from Algeria, and she was just like, she was the light in my life. And I remember when I started working with her in the company, I soon became the manager. And she gave me one of the best gifts of my life. She paid for a personal development seminar. It was a 3-day thing. I have never done any therapy, nothing, like no type of counseling. And I went, and it was like my eyes, like I just cleared up my glasses, and I was like, oh my God. Like I've been living in a victim mentality this whole fucking time, ever since I was a kid to like now. And I don't want this anymore. I don't want this to be my identity. I'm gonna do what I have to do to heal. So yeah, we started growing. She started like her company grew like tremendously. And with that, like there was like levels to the seminars. So then I started going to, she would pay for it, and then I would just pay her every week, like off of my check. And I really expose myself to different people, like with different, like from all types, different backgrounds, because I'm from Southgate, Huntington Park area, like that's home. That's 98% Latino. So when I went to these seminars, I'm like learning from like a detective from SVU, like she worked for the Special Victims Unit in San Francisco, a dentist, and I'm like, oh my God, like there's so much more to this world. And I was like, I quit working with her. I hit a plateau, and I was like, I think this is it. She's like, yeah, this is it. But I was still working with her. Like I was subcontracting with her. She was like, you should start your own company. So I started my own company. I started working with her as a partner instead of as an in-house employee. But it's hard. It's hard. And after all like the personal development, I was like, dude, I'm going to share this information to my community. So I started doing YouTube videos. And I mean, you out of anyone know how much time goes into videos. And I was trying to work. I was like, when you're self-employed, they don't tell you the first couple of years, you're literally customer service. I'm cleaning toilets. I answer the phone. I try to change my voice. Oh yeah, you're gonna have Jackie. So that's how I started. And I still feel like I'm healing gradually, but I was like, I still feel like this emptiness. And I was like, I'm going back to school. Like, what the fuck? Like, I got my AA. I was like, I'm going back to school. People do it all the time. And I went back to school, and I'm like trying to just do my best to just heal all around, physically, mentally, spiritually, just to become a better person. I think one thing that I learned in the seminar was hurt people, and healed people. And I was like, I have to heal myself. I can't help anyone else if I don't heal myself, and I'm dealing with the shit. And I remember I went to my doctors once, and they were like, we're having this pilot counseling. Like, do you want to try out? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, I've never done therapy. I did it. I ended up getting qualified for it. And the therapist, it was like a 12-week program. And she's like, yeah, you have depression, you have PTSD, you have some anxiety. And I was like, okay, I already knew this, blah, blah, blah. And she gives me this book at the end of my session because it's only 12 weeks. And it was The Body Keeps the Score. And this book, it's so dense and it's so heavy. And I started reading it. And I started realizing, like, oh my God, like, I have so much fucking trauma stored in my body still. Like, and I already invested thousands in the seminar. And why do I feel like shit? And that's when I come across, I remember telling my partner, I was like, dude, I really want to do EMDR, or I want to do something, but like, I really want to just like get to the root. Like, I'm trying to start a family, and I had surgery last year for endometriosis. So it's been like it's been a infertility journey in a sense. And I come across Gabor Maté. And I see, it was a Tim Ferriss interview, and I see it, and he's talking about trauma and how it starts in the womb and how you carry it and you don't know subconsciously you're carrying all this. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm trying to have a baby. I have to heal myself. And he starts talking about ayahuasca, plant medicine, and he talks about his experience. Like, I went and if you know Gabor, you know his story. And I was like, dude, this guy went and he went to guide this retreat in Peru, and he ended up being the one, like, being the student from the shamans. And I was like, fuck, like, if this guy did it, he's a therapist, a medical doctor of so many years, and he got all this revolutionary, like, breakthroughs. Like, I'm gonna do this. And I just said it. I'm doing this. I'm gonna jump the gun. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I know there's a lot of like speculation of what psychedelics are. And I was like, you know what? At this point, like, I don't care. Like, I'm just trying to hit the root. And I went. And I remember I paid for the seminar. I ended up finding one in Mexico, and it was a beautiful experience. And I didn't even know what I paid for. I just know I was doing ayahuasca. So it turns out it was 3 nights of ayahuasca. I did combo, which was like a purging, like medicine that you do before drinking the actual ayahuasca. And man, each ceremony was so different. It was so hard. Like, I cried. The first ceremony, I was healing my mommy and daddy issues. And any sense of like grudge or remorse that I had for them, it just evaporated. The ego died. I healed. I feel like I saw my parents with different eyes. Second day, I was dealing with all of my spiritual, like, negative energy, like all that exorcism stuff, and I was dealing with that. Third night was when I was battling with my sexual assault experience. And each night was hard, and I felt like I was in hell each night. And the fourth ceremony, which is the last closing one, you end up doing like Bufo, which is it's known as a God molecule. And I remember the shaman saying, a lot of people feel like they're dying, and if you feel like you're dying, just let yourself die. And I was like, oh, fuck this, I'm not doing it. I already died 3 nights in a row. I'm done. Like, I already healed what I had to heal. Like, no, I'm not doing this shit. And I remember there's a psychiatrist there at this retreat. So I think that's why it like really sold me. Like, there's a psychiatrist, there's a shaman, and there's servers. There's people that are really supporting you the whole time. And I remember going up to the psychiatrist. Her name was Liberty. And I was like, Liberty, I'm scared. She's like, it's okay to be scared. She's like, but just know you're in a safe space, and you're going to be around, you know, people that are going to take care of you. And maybe it's just something that you have stored. And I was like, okay, I went back to my seat, and I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then I just, like, the lady who does the psilocybin retreats, she's like, if you ask me, I'm always going to say, do it. I'm never going to force you to do any medicine, but fear is a good thing. It's like, fear gives you adrenaline. Fear helps you, motivates you to do things. But fear starts to become a problem when it starts to paralyze you. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I already died 3 days in a row. Like, let's just go. Like, one more death is nothing. At this point, I'm like, I'm a fucking cat, whatever. And I do this medicine. And this is like the shortest type of medicine, because when you do ayahuasca, they give you like a 12-hour window because you don't know how long you're going to be out for. This one, it's only about 30 to 45 minutes max. But it's the strongest form of DMT. So I do it. And Mark, I remember when I'm doing it, I thought I was going to go to hell, and it's completely opposite. I just remember seeing like this energy, just like love and gratitude and forgiveness just pouring into me. And I just started crying and crying and crying. And then I remember like me going to my room and like talking to my own child, telling my child, like, I love you so much and you don't even exist. Here I am healing all my generational trauma for you, and you're not even here. And I knew what unconditional love was then and there. And it was just a full circle. And now, before I remember, I was like, I remember I would be like so embarrassed to talk about my story. Like, me? Do coke? Me? Do crystal meth? No, like my ego was here. And it was a complete ego death, that experience. And I realized that I was living under shame and guilt. And I think that's like why I was like, I'm ready to share my story. Addiction has many different forms. Abuse has many different forms. And they all can look like either prostitute, a stripper, a pimp, somebody who's dealing with, fentanyl abuse. And it looks like me. And I think I think what you're doing is phenomenal. It's hard to watch, but that's the reality. Like, life really, everyone has their own story. And I think if we just sit and really listen, we start to realize that a lot of the times other people's stories, it's like you're listening to yours. And that's why I was like, you know what? I'm going to find, I think there's strength in my vulnerability. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Only 4 people in my life know my entire story. But yes, I ended up getting my bachelor's degrees in May. I still have my cleaning company. I'm very thankful because I can give job opportunities to women just like my mom. My parents work with me, and I just feel really blessed. And I if anything, like, if the story is gonna be anything, I just want people to know that, don't listen to the darkness. Like listen to it, but don't follow it. Like, there's room for growth. And if you truly, truly want to heal, it's a hard fucking journey. You're literally scoring up with all your shit, your shadow, your demons. But there is light under the tunnel. And I know my journey hasn't ended. I know I haven't healed 100%. I think that's what the biggest realization, that the true journey begins after plant medicine. Like, just dealing. Now I see people, I go to the fashion district, I see people on Skid Row. And before it was the judgmental approach. Now I'm like, damn, look at my brother, look at my sister. I see their pain. I see the trauma. I see how hurt they are. And I think that was why I was like, you know what, I'm ready to share my story. And
how old are you now?
I'm going to be 29 next year, and next month.
Yeah, you're still young.
Yeah.
And that had a strong effect on you.
100%.
Yeah.
I definitely feel like it rewired a lot of neurons in my brain that were fucking dead, that I didn't know, that were traumatized as a child, adolescent, just seeing all the abuse in my home, just numbed everything. And medicine just, all right, it's time to get your brain working. It's okay.
And where was this?
So I did it in Mexico. It's called Mexisol, and it's in Tepatitlán. It's crazy how life works because my boyfriend is from there. I was gonna go to Peru. I was like, I'm going to Gabor's. He advocated for this one. But that was a 12-day one. I was like, damn, I don't know if I could go out there for 12 days. That's the 12 days of me not working and not being here and being away from family. But I found this one in Mexico, and it was a beautiful experience. I recommend. I feel like if it's calling you, if she's calling you, listen to her, Mother Aya, because she will give you a lot of healing. And I had my share of drugs, and this one is completely different. You die, but you're reborn into something that. And I know so many people now. Once I shared my experience, I found out oh, you know what, my mom did it, and she stopped doing drugs. The person who guided me to this, his son did it, and he stopped doing drugs the first time. Second time, he quit alcohol. So, I mean, I don't do any drugs anymore. My fix now is I started doing Jiu-Jitsu. So that's how I get my dopamine rush. I literally rolling around fighting with people. But yeah, it was a beautiful experience, 100%. So,
That's great.
Yeah.
Not everyone has the positive experience, but I'm glad you did. And
Yeah.
It sounds like it was really helpful.
Yeah. I think that's what like people say like, oh, it's bad. Yeah, it's bad. Not bad, but it's difficult. And a lot of people aren't ready to deal with all their shit. A lot of people aren't ready to really just like hug that little girl that was hurt because it's so painful. So I think that's why people have like difficult experiences and have like a negative approach. But I definitely had a wonderful experience. And I mean, I really applaud what you're doing. Like, I think what you're doing, to me, you're one of my heroes. Like, just being able to share everyone's story and showing how we're all similar and alike, but so different at the same time. It's amazing what you're doing. So
thank you.
Thank you.
There's so many different approaches to healing, and that I'm glad you had a great experience.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you for having me, Mark. I appreciate you.
Thank you. When I was designing the first White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.